I'm an education coordinator for Georgia Power, and today I am going to teach you guys how to make a solar bracelet or a solar keychain. But first, I want to talk to you about Georgia Power. Do you know what Georgia Power is? Do you know what we do? I want you guys to look around your room and count all of the things that require electricity to function. You got your light bulbs. If you have lights on, you're using electricity. If you're watching me from a laptop, you're using electricity. This laptop needs electricity to charge. Even if you're watching me from a cell phone, what do you do every night to your cell phone? You plug it in, you charge it. It requires electricity. I mean, we depend heavily on electricity, and our lives would look a lot different without it. So here at Georgia Power, our job is to make, move, and sell electricity to customers like you. And our job is to make sure that that electricity is safe, reliable, and affordable. Now, electricity is a form of energy, and energy comes in many different forms. And today we're going to talk about solar energy. Solar energy is the energy that comes from the sun. Now, it is a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And the electromagnetic spectrum includes stuff like microwaves, X-rays, radio waves, and the light spectrum. And the light spectrum is made up of infrared light, visible light, and ultraviolet light. We can only see visible light, and it's made up of the rainbow. Now, if you look below, you can see that there are wavelengths. So infrared has the highest number of wavelengths, the shortest, and ultraviolet has longer wavelengths. Now, since we can only see visible light, how on earth are we going to be able to detect ultraviolet light? You may have detected it before without ever knowing. Have you ever had a sunburn? That comes from ultraviolet radiation. Now, let's talk about our solar beads and our solar bracelets and keychains. So we are going to detect ultraviolet light using a special bead. Now, these solar beads have a chemical embedded in the plastic that reacts to UV light. Now, why isn't it reacting right now? Well, I'm inside. The only light that's in here is the visible light. That's why you can see me. Now, if I were to take these outside and get them under the sun, under bright sunlight, they would change color. They would react because the sun is providing that ultraviolet light. All right, y'all. So today we are going to be scientists for Georgia Power. Now, we have a ton of different careers here at Georgia Power, but today we're going to be scientists, and our job is to detect ultraviolet radiation. Now, since we can't see it, how are we going to detect it? We are going to use this special tool called UV beads. Now remember, these have a chemical embedded in the plastic that react to UV light, not visible light. That's why it's not reacting right now. So once these go out in the sun, if there is UV radiation, a chemical reaction will take place and these will change color. So that is going to be our experiment today. Now, to get started, you guys need a flat work surface, so something like this table right here. You're gonna need some scissors, you're gonna need some pony beads, you're definitely gonna need some solar beads like this, and you're going to need string. Now, depending on what you want to make, if you wanna make a keychain, you need a key ring. And if you wanna make a bracelet, there's a couple different ways that you can close the bracelet. You can get a bracelet clasp at any local craft store. I'm just gonna make mine super simple, and I'm gonna do a keychain today, but I'll also run through how to make a bracelet if that's what you're interested in. All right, so first, let's go ahead and pick out our beads. Now, you don't just go willy-nilly and start making a bracelet. You have to plan like a good scientist, like a good engineer would plan and design. So I have my solar beads and I have my pony beads, and I think what I want to do, I'm gonna make my bracelet 3 wide, and a typical adult size wrist is about 19 beads long. Now, if you are a kid, you could probably get away with 15 beads, but you definitely want to have that wrap all around your wrist. So I'm gonna go 19 beads long and 3 wide. And what I'm gonna do is lay out my beads right here so I can just pick them up and put them on the string. So let's get in our engineering space. They're kind of like artists. So as an engineering artist, I am feeling inspired by the spectrum of visible light on the light spectrum. So I am going to keep that in mind when I am designing my bracelet and laying out my beads. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I am going to start with a row of my solar beads, and I want mine to be 3 beads wide. So I'm just gonna lay them out, 1, 2, 3. And then the next row, since I am inspired by the visible light spectrum, I'm going to do red. If I can get it out of there. All right. And I am gonna leave a little bit of space in between these beads just because it makes it easier to grab when I'm making the bracelet. And I'm gonna do another row of these. All right, so that's 3 rows. I'm going 19 long, so I have 16 more to go. Okay, so I ended up doing a few more than 19 rows, but since I'm making a keychain, it doesn't really matter. So once you have your beads laid out, what you want to do next is get what you're not using out of your way. Get your string. All right, so it's always better to have too much string than too little. So the amount that I am telling you is going to be way more than you need, but there's nothing worse than getting at the end of a project and running out of string and having to start over. So take this and do 1 arm's length, and then without cutting it, you're gonna do another one. So 2 arm lengths, fold it in half, seems about right. And it doesn't have to be perfect because at the end, like I said, we are trimming off extra string, so it's not a big deal. And then just snip it right there. Boom. All right, so you have an end of 2 cut strings, and then you have a looped end right here. You're gonna take your looped end. Now, if you're making a bracelet, this part is important. So you want to tie a knot and make this loop about a little bit smaller than your pinky. And you're just gonna tie the string around itself. Just like that. Boom. And the key, if you're making a bracelet, again, if you're making a keychain, this doesn't really matter. You want to be able to fit a bead through it, but you want a little bit of a resistance. So my loop is actually a little bit too big. So I'm just gonna loosen it up and make it tighter because the bead is gonna be your clasp, unless you wanna get really fancy and go to your local craft store and get an actual bracelet clasp. They're super cheap and it definitely gives the bracelet more of a finished look. But for today's purposes, I'm just gonna show you how to finish up your bracelet with a bead closure. All right, so you have the start of your string, right? Now you're gonna do this little loop-de-loop no matter if you're doing a bracelet or if you're doing a keychain, and you're gonna lay it out. Now, to make your life a little bit easier, we're gonna tape this end to the table. All right, so we have our string taped to the table. It's just taped right above that knot. And you want to be really careful because these strings can kind of whip around and mess up your beads. See, it already happened to me, I didn't even notice. So you just want to be mindful of that. So to get started, you're going to take one side. I'm going to do my left, and you're going to hold it about an inch away from the bottom, and go ahead and load it with your first row of beads. So it looks like this, and then you're going to take your other string right here, and you are going to also loop it through those 3 beads, so or 2 or 1 or whatever you guys decided your length to be. So this is what it's going to look like. Then you're going to take the 2 ends and pull, and you are going to pull and pull and pull until it is up right next to that knot that you tied. And you can kind of unwind the twist in them as you go, but it's, you know, it'll kind of come out on their own. And you're gonna pull it as tight as it will go. And then you want each string on their respective sides. And I'm gonna start with my left side again and load up my next row. So hold it about an inch away from the very end. Load up your beads. This bead has a little bit of plastic in the way. All right, so we got our 3 beads. Get your other string and put that in there. All right, and then this is what it's going to look like. And then you pull. Okay, so we just did our last row of beads, and to finish this off, we are going to go back through that last row with each string, just like we have been doing this whole time. So it's going to be a little bit tighter than it was before, but it's not impossible. We got 1. We want to do this one now. There we go. All right. All right, now that that's on there, we are going to make the end of our keychain, and that's just gonna be 1 bead. Do the same thing, boom. Same thing, boom. Tie it. All right. So if you're making a bracelet the way that we just talked about, you want this bead to be a little bit farther away. So let's just go ahead and tie that off. just tie a basic simple knot right here. Cut it, and here we go. And now you are styling. Now I might need someone else to help me get this on. However, there we go. We have our bracelet. And if you are making a keychain, you're gonna take the very beginning end that you started with the loop, and you're just gonna put that key ring on there like this. Boom, keychain, you are good to go. How awesome is that? Now, next up is our science experiment with these solar beads. Let's see what happens when we take them out in the sun. Okay guys, are y'all ready to be scientists for Georgia Power? I think so. So our experiment today, we are going to be observing the chemical changes that happen in our UV solar beads. So remember, these beads don't change when they're exposed to visible light, but they do change when they're exposed to UV light. And where can we get that UV light? Sun. So here's what you need. You need 2 baggies, you need your solar beads, a Sharpie, sunscreen, and most importantly, a sunny day and a good sunny location to put these out. So like any good experiment, we have a control group right here. Write that on your baggie. That control group, nothing is going to change. We are just going to put this baggie out there with nothing applied. Now, our experimental group right here, this is where the magic is going to happen. We are going to spray it with sunscreen. Now, what does sunscreen do? It blocks harmful UV rays from our skin, right? So I want you guys to come up with a hypothesis. What do you think is going to happen? What changes are you going to see? Write it down, and then let's get ready to experiment. Okay, so to prepare for our experiment, we need to go ahead and apply the SPF 50 to our experimental group. So you can do this outside, just make sure that your control group is nowhere near it so that your experiment does not mess up. All right, and if you're doing this inside like I am, you're gonna wanna be really, really careful to make sure whatever flat surface you're working on, that you're not gonna damage it with your sunscreen, okay? So give it a little shake and just spray it on that baggie. I'm gonna go ahead and get the back too, just in case. I don't really know if that's super important, but I just don't wanna take any chances. Now we're gonna take these 2 bags outside. Make sure that any sunscreen that's on your hand, it's not getting on your control bag, okay? All right, y'all, let's check out our results. So first, let's look at the control group. So this group got no sunscreen, and there is definitely a chemical change. So is there UV rays out here? You bet, because there's been a chemical reaction right here. Now let's look at our experimental group. What has changed? Was there a reaction? Absolutely. Now, they are not quite as blue as our control group, that there has still been a reaction. So what does that tell you about sunscreen? It blocks some UV rays, but not all of them. So does this match your hypothesis? Why or why not? Let's talk about solar energy on a larger scale. Chances are the electricity in your home does not come from solar energy. That's because it's very expensive and there's not really a good way to store the energy captured from the sun. So basically what that means is if it's sunny outside, that's right when you need to use that energy that's produced. There are scientists and engineers and researchers at Georgia Power that are working on a battery storage system that can actually store the energy produced by the sun. The problem is it's expensive and it's not very reliable. Think about the sun in Georgia. Is it sunny every single day? No, we have a lot of rain here. And so that means that on a rainy day, if you're relying completely on solar energy, your lights might not come on. Or what about at night when the sun's not out? How would you get electricity then? So that's why at Georgia Power, we have a very diverse energy portfolio. Basically what that means is that we get our energy from a lot of different sources. Solar is included in that, and we are continuing to research different ways that we can increase our solar energy use. If you're interested in this, there are many different career paths that you could go down. And one day you could be the person that solves that solar energy problem, and you could produce a battery that allows us to rely more on solar energy every single day in Georgia. So I just mentioned Georgia Power's diverse portfolio of energy resources. What does that mean? Well, that means that we have a number of different types of energy plants. We have hydro-powered plants, we have nuclear, we have coal-fired power plants. And what that does, it allows us to provide the most cost-effective and reliable energy to our customers, like you. And just like you get a power bill every single month, we pay to generate that power. And the more money that we spend generating that power, we have to pass that cost down to our customers. So we try to educate everybody about energy efficiency. Now, what is energy efficiency? Well, it's using energy wisely. So how can you use energy wisely in your home every day? It's very simple. Did you know that most of the energy use in your home comes from heating and cooling? So let's start there. If it's a hot summer day and the inside of your house is just too warm for you, instead of turning down that air conditioning unit and touching that thermostat, what can you do to cool down the inside of your house? Well, a lot of that heat, most of that heat is coming from the sun. So close your curtains, close your blinds, prevent that sun from beaming into your home. What if it's winter? How are you going to keep that heat inside? Do the exact opposite. Open up those blinds, generate that heat naturally from the sun. You can put on a hat, put on a sweatshirt, bundle up, put on some nice warm fuzzy socks instead of turning your heat on. Now, of course, there are other costs associated with energy in your home. How else do you use energy? Lights, definitely. So when you leave a room, turn off that light. Now, what about your phone chargers and your laptop chargers and your iPad chargers? If those are still plugged in, even when you're not connected to it with your phone, it's still using energy. So when you're not charging your phone, go ahead and unplug those from the wall. Now, let's say you're standing in front of the refrigerator looking for a snack and you are just holding the door open, letting all of that cool air escape. That is a big energy suck. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you love your keychains and your solar bracelets. If you enjoyed this activity, make sure you check out our other ones available on our website. We really appreciate you supporting our Learning Power program with Georgia Power. And remember, it is easy to be energy efficient. You can do it every single day. If you enjoyed this and our other activities, you would be a good employee at Georgia Power. So make sure you check out our different energy careers.